How y'all doing today? As we all come out, this is Sandy. She did the introductions, but I want you to know who's who. Then we have Raea, and then we have Denise with us. And I'm going to probably drive the organizers crazy because I think I'm going to stand. Let me first tell you that I am you. I had a career, I managed law firms, and at 42, I walked away to be crazy and start my own business. It's 8 years later, and I love every minute of it, and even the parts where I cried with a wine bottle in my hand. So I will tell you, totally worth it, but we've been there, and it really is never too late to start. So if you're thinking about it, just go for it. All right, that was my part, and now we're gonna ask the ladies some wonderful questions so that they can share their experiences, and I hope you were able to. We have short time, so we'd rather share our experiences, but please be mindful, all of our social media is not up there. All right, well, we'll go over that later so that you can find us when you need us, and we can answer more of your questions. But today, we're going to start with, whether you call it kismet, divinity, or good luck, I find most business owners, successful ones, had a person, a moment, somebody that kicked them in the pants or made an introduction, did something to really kind of help them move along. So I want to know, I'm going to ask, not everybody's going to get to answer every question probably, but the question is, who was your most helpful person and how did that shape your success? And maybe how did you meet them? And I think I'm going to start with Denise. Denise, do you mind sharing?
Yeah, hi, good morning everybody. I had a really lovely story actually about a guy who I didn't know at all, who completely changed my life with regards to my business. I was writing, I'm a nutritionist, and I was writing a column in a local paper, and for about 6 months I kind of thought, this is good, but you know, what am I doing this for, and who's even reading it, who cares? And this guy flew into Gatwick one day, and I live in a town called Chichester, which is about an hour from London, and he was visiting somebody in my town. And he is a corporate guy, works in the corporate business and has done for years, works with really influential companies like Shell Oil and financial companies. And he sat down in this cafe one day when he was on his sort of transitional way through to meet his friend, and he happened to open this paper. And the day before, he was thinking, I'd really like a nutritionist to be on board with me, with all these companies, and to teach people how to stay well. So as he opened the paper, he saw my column in the paper. And that night, I happened to be doing a presentation, just locally in my town. And he decided he was going to hang around and come and see me in this talk. So that evening, unbeknown to me, I didn't know he was there. He was sat in the audience, and just before I finished, he came up to me just before the first break, he handed me his business card, and he said, I want you to come to Lithuania with me next week. And I was like, what? Are you crazy? And he said, this is what I do. I haven't got time to hang around. Just let me know. Let me know by tomorrow night what you're going to do. So I looked him up, Googled him, had my whole family looking around thinking he's some lunatic. And he literally changed my business overnight. I started to work with him, that was over 10 years ago. And we have the most amazing relationship. He's introduced me to the most amazing people. And I didn't even know that I could really work in that world. It wasn't my world at all. And he just believed in me. And I think having somebody, when I turned up in Lithuania a week later, he said, okay, what's your material? What have you got? And I was thinking, this is all so crazy. And I was just kind of winging it, but it worked. And, as I say, we've been working together ever since. And it was a great experience, and he's a really good guy, and he changed my business.
So that lesson is, be open to not the path you thought, right? I mean, yes. That's what I'm hearing from that story is you might think that your customer is going to be from one place, or you might think that you're going to sell your business to a type of company, but just be open to what the universe brings you, right? That's the whole point. Sandy, did you have a story? Did you want to share on that one, the helpful people?
Yeah, I feel like,
Flip it on.
Okay, hello?
Oh, maybe it was on before.
There you go. Hello?
Closer.
Okay.
There you go.
I would say that my person would be my husband. he was an attorney at the time, and I had this silly idea for a better moisturizing glove than what was on the market at the time. And I developed it, and it was just one of those crazy things. I have a broadcasting and journalism degree. I knew nothing about business. So my husband, though, was always just said, go for it, try it, do this. And he was always the one that really kind of allowed me the freedom, the creative license to try to make it work. But beyond that, I would say that I felt like I needed to learn so much about business, and so I went out and I bought a couple books about how business in the beginning, and they were filled with a lingo that I did not understand. So I returned to those books and I exchanged them for self-help books like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra, and I learned that I needed to be that person that really was going to inspire and motivate myself, that I didn't have to, like Denise and like Stephanie earlier, I didn't have to know everything about the business. I realized I could learn as I went along, as long as I had some confidence that I could do it. And so, so sometimes you have to kind of find that inspiration and the confidence within.
And it leads to a good question. Throughout the journey of being an entrepreneur specifically, how many had to go to a place where you had to strengthen yourself? Go, you know what, I really can be my own pillar, right? Did you all experience that? Because I know that I have, so I was just curious.
What do you mean, go to a place?
Well, whether it's maybe go more into books that are specific to what you want to, so you can feel stronger and confident in your roles, or if it's a guidance through a universe or a God, where you look there to find some strength and go, you know what, I have this within me, and I have this belief that it will carry me through in my business. And I think that happens to a lot of business owners on theirs. Would you agree, Raea?
Yeah, I would say that when you step into the space, much of what Stephanie had talked about in the keynote, where you are going to do something radically different and you're very, very uncomfortable and you need to start going to networking groups, this is a great start, this is fantastic, right? Where you're connecting with other small business owners and you're asking them questions and you're asking about like where were their failures and what did they learn along the way. Definitely Tony Robbins, you said Tony Robbins, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Anytime anyone comes to me and says, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my full-time job and I want to transition into being a small business owner or / an entrepreneurial adventure, I am like, you've got to study Tony Robbins. There's a couple main principles that in a 30-second or coffee conversation, Tony Robbins principles, I just throw right at them right on the spot. If they can't answer those basic Tony Robbins principles, I'm like, you need to keep doing your homework and figure out what space you're going to occupy and where you are. Being on the path of small business ownership, entrepreneurship is a very personal journey, and the universe is going to mirror right back to you what your shortcomings are. So you need to stay connected with like-minded individuals that are also in that same gutsy, terrifying, uncomfortable space. And many things what Stephanie echoed, I just thought were so on point. You need to face them head on.
I love that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Did you? Okay. So within that, when we are in our business and we're chugging along and now we feel strong, we've got our confidence, our ideas starting to kick in a little bit. But when did you really know that you're like, oh my God, this is going to work? Like, what happened when you were like, there was that moment when you're like, this is a legit business. Like, I'm going, oh, Raea's like, oh, yeah. Okay, let's start with Raea.
I was still very much in the phase of like, where do I belong? And then the US Army called me. So I was probably in year 2.5 of my business. My business is 4 years old, and I'm still very much in the space of people were like, people are paying you to go to your house and take away cans of paint? What? That's what the landfill is for. So it was first when the US Army called me, and then 3 months later when they called me again for a repeat visit to take away another 1.5 tons of paint. And then in between those 2 phone calls, I had gotten a phone call from the United States Army Environmental Command out of Fort Sam Houston in Texas.
Were you first afraid you were in trouble? Like I'd have been like, I'm her secretary, how can I help you?
The first question was, is this Miss Leinster? And I said, yes, how may I help you? And it was on my business line, and then it said, can you verify that you're a woman-owned business?
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I said, and then it went right to that. But the
Excellent.
interesting thing is those phone calls came, guys, when I was still living customer paycheck to customer paycheck. Somehow I'd hit the radar screen of the golden
Goose.
I was like, keep going. Keep going. I mean, I sold jewelry, I sold some stocks, and eventually I did hire a business coach. And I did get to a point, and this is going to sound radical and highly irrational. I sold my house. I sold my house not because I was in debt, not because I was in trouble, because I had gotten that far along in my business. It made sense. It was the right thing to do. And I had a business coach, and I had my business attorney, and I spoke with my parents and one or two other close confidants who were highly successful business persons in this industry. And they said, happens all the time. Go for it.
Yeah, and and it brings a point to why we're here today, right? We're graciously guests of investors, people that want us to know that there is money accessible out there. It depends on where you are in your business and your industry and your ideas, but get educated on that part, right? You know, and sometimes the bootstrap, Stephanie, bootstrap, there's a lot, the majority of you, as you launch your businesses, because I know you're all going to do it, are going to be bootstrapped. But today you're in a room, you're at a conference where you have access to people who understand the financial side of it. And if there is a scary side that can overwhelm any entrepreneur, it is the finance side. Make sure you take advantage of them. If you find yourself next to them, do not be shy. Start asking questions now. I cannot tell you, that's a thing that slows growth over and over again. Sorry, I just wanted to, since you were being so, and I appreciate the honesty. One of the things when I was speaking with Raea, I swear I'm going to come back to you guys. I just want, last point, when I was speaking with her, because I talked to all the panelists ahead of time, she was like, entrepreneurs who care about their credit score might not want to do this because there's times, you have to decide your priority. And I thought that was a really enlightened thing to say. There's a time when your business needs all of you, and that can include all of your cash. Denise, did you have somebody how did you know your business was making it? What was your killing it? Like, this is the time, I've made it, this is going to work.
Well, I think for me, my driving force was actually getting divorced, which was pretty hideous. And my husband tried to take every penny off myself and the children. That's a whole nother subject. But it was that part of me that just was so devastated. And I just thought, I'm never going to work for anyone else. I'm completely unemployable because I hate being told what to do. So I don't want to work 9 to 5. I want to work my own hours. I want to go running in the morning. I want to create the life so that I can be there for my kids as much as I possibly can. And I need to maintain a lifestyle that I had while I was with my husband, because that's the lifestyle we'd kind of got used to. And that was kind of my drive, really, for making it work. And I remember about 4 years in after the divorce, kind of sitting there one day and actually breathing and thinking, oh, I've done it. I've actually done it, and we are surviving, and we're living, and I don't need him, and all of that stuff.
Right, autonomy of a financial side is a motivator, right? There's not having your boss and not having to worry, right? That's the goal for a lot of people. I don't want to worry about whether my mortgage payment, not that you were, but a mortgage payment was going to come in. Am I going to be able to pay for payroll? It's getting to that point where you're like, this is working. So Sandy, I am going to ask you this one. How did you know it was all coming together?
Well, one of my most exciting moments when I felt like, wow, this worked was Bed Bath & Beyond was one of our first clients. And that, so I felt like when I walked into the store and I saw my product, wow, I've done it. I felt really good for like 15 seconds. because when you are a bootstrapping entrepreneur, as my husband and I were, there were other things to worry about. Yes, now we had Bed Bath & Beyond as a client, but we also had manufacturing issues. We were basically, in the garment industry. We were sewing, manufacturing cotton gloves. And so while landing a big client was always important, there was always the back end. We had to fulfill it. So I never really rested on laurels for very long because manufacturing is a huge headache. 25 years later, I still have the headache of manufacturing. It never really, I don't really rest easy. I mean, we've streamlined the business now and it's very different, but in those days, so I would say, like, I really enjoyed the moments where I would walk into or Bath and Body Works or H2O Plus, these big chain stores that we worked with whenever I was out of town or I walked into my local mall. I really did feel good for about 15 seconds. But then it's true, you always have to focus on the other side. And that I also thrived on that part, though. I loved the unknown. I would call Estee Lauder and say, wow, you guys make unbelievable moisturizers. We have the best gloves. We should work together. And they would say yes. And I would hang up the phone and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I thrived on that part of figuring out a way after somebody said yes. And I still really enjoy that.
Yeah.
That part of the business.
That might be a defining quality of an entrepreneur is that excitement over a challenge or problem solving. If you've ever been described as somebody that is good at problem solving, or if you're ever like, gosh, I could do this so much better. I totally wish. Why don't they just listen to me? I know what I'm doing. You might have the entrepreneur gene in there. I'm just saying. All right. So if we know we've gone through and we are finding success. One of the big motivators for a lot of entrepreneurs is the personal life, and I think that some of you have already started speaking to that. You wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on in your business was going to support your personal why, whether that's you like to travel, you want to be around for your kids, you have health issues, you want autonomy, right? There's a personal why that you're trying to cover in that development of your business model. So thinking to how you've designed your business model today, how do you protect your why? If I can, I'm going to share a story about my why. So I was running law firms, and I had a 2-year-old, and so when you're running law firms, you're gone the whole time. And my husband, mistake of a lifetime, sends me a photo of a little 2-year-old in bed with a passy and blonde hair and a photograph of mom. And so my big why was to be home in the mornings more than not, to be so he could, because that makes his day good. So literally that's the moment I changed, and I always built my business model around I wouldn't take more than 1 or 2 morning meetings, and it was a very specific, it wasn't always easy, and sometimes you would miss opportunities, but I was staying committed to my why. So what have you done in your business models to support the why for you personally, whether that's health, children, family, autonomy?
Yeah, I think as I said earlier, I just wanted to make sure that I could still maintain my life. My friends became really even more important. Obviously, when you go through something like divorce, they became so important. So I wanted to make time for them, my family, my kids, and that completely motivated me to create. Obviously, I'm away a lot of the time as well, but when I'm home, and it's real quality time, and I'm there a lot to do all the things we want to do to catch up with people, because the work-life balance, I talk about it all the time. I'm a nutritionist and I talk about these things, so I can't not live it. Mm-hmm. So it's really important for me to live that and have my own balance, if that's what I'm going to tell to other people.
I love it. I love it. And what about, I'm going to jump to Sandy first.
Sure.
You're going to wind it up, right?
Mixing
it up.
Yeah. I guess like today it's called company culture, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like we didn't know it at the time, but my husband and I really wanted, same thing, we wanted to be at home. We also, like Stephanie said, we started a business out of the basement of our home, and my mom came to work for us full time. And when I would get a call from a big buyer or something, and my mom occasionally, my husband would say, she would say like, well, she's not home right now. No. But that was our company culture. We all wanted to be home for the kids and balance work and home life. So that was our company culture without knowing it at the time, and spent the past 18, 20 years building this business around our kids rather than focusing on building an empire or trying to just grow. Our focus was really parenting first and then the business.
Love it.
I got some good advice a few years ago that you need to schedule your downtime. And I didn't understand that until when Yuck Old Paint was growing and got to a critical point where, because about half of our phone calls are residents who are moving out of the house and they have that moment when the garage and the basement are still full of pesticides and kerosene and motor oil and antifreeze, and the movers are coming tomorrow morning at 7. All right. So because we're working 7 days a week, including holidays and weekends, I finally understood the value of that advice, and so I do that. So I'm actually leaving for New York City tomorrow. I've got 2 speaking engagements Friday, and then I said, hey, I'm in New York. I'm going to schedule Saturday and Sunday for some downtime. Make myself available to my crew and my team and to my customers. I'll still like ping something, but schedule the downtime. It's very, very important.
Excellent. I love it. And I appreciate you guys sharing all that, because I know that a lot of you are thinking about building a business because you have a personal need, want, desire to, be with family, take care of an aging parent, take care of yourself, right? We've all talked about that. Yeah. Martyrs are not welcome. Don't do it. You will burn out. I wanted to ask, within your industries, again, I'll ask you, please clarify your industry right before you start, but within your industries, is there ever a time when you're like, this is the piece in my industry that I feel like I have to get past? Meaning, you very specifically are talking about paint and, landfills. People are like, it's a trash. Why do I have to care about it, right? Was there anything that you felt like messaging in your industry that you really had to struggle to get your audience to catch on to?
We're here.
Yeah, just the knowledge.
Okay, because I have created a totally different new operational model for businesses and the military and the government and residential homeowners to deal with paint, trash, and what are called the EPA Class 3 household hazardous waste. All the crap in your garage, sorry, that's a fancy way of saying it. So the first item is we're here. And then I learned along the way that I am the only company on the East Coast that actually offers and provides this service. So that I learned over time, I didn't need to start talking about the environmental aspect of what we're doing and how we're handling, because I came prepared with this whole pitch about how we're landfill diversion and what does that mean for you. And no, you're not paying us to go to the landfill. This is what we do with it, and we recycle and reuse. And then I sort of backed off when I realized the residential homeowner really didn't care. They were just so, that was nice, but they were just so happy and so relieved that there was someone out there who could help them, because the movers are coming tomorrow, the closing is at 5, the buyers have stopped the whole process because the garage in the basement is full of stuff that they don't want to inherit as soon as they roll in the next day. So once I started listening to, in the Tony Robbins world, their pain point, what was the pain point for the customer, then I needed to adapt and modulate my message to address the pain point. And then it's just, we're here. Yes, we can be there tomorrow. Yes, we can drive. I got a team in Maryland now that can help you with this. Yes, I can help you, no problem. And that's what it became.
Excellent. And then in health and wellness, there has to be some messaging when you're trying to get people to be convinced that it's really okay to not overstress.
Absolutely. A lot of the people I see, clients I see on a one-to-one, so this is separate from the corporate world. I have a clinic in Harley Street in London and one in West Sussex. Sadly, by the time people get to me, a lot of the time they're really gravely quite ill. So they are literally prepared to put everything into it, which is really quite amazing. But for me, turning that around, I will never sort of neglect that side of my business. And whenever I see a client, I see them for 2 hours at least, the first time I see them. And I try and give every single person 100% of me, because every person that comes to see me has got something that they really are desperate about correcting. So, I just take that really, really seriously and make sure that everybody gets the same kind of service. And that's why it's really hard to develop that side of my business, because I don't trust anybody to do it in the way I do. But that's why the corporate stuff is so amazing, because I get to talk to people in larger audience, which gets the message out there, hopefully, to lots of different people. But, it's just making yourself stand out as well. Within my consultations, I use a device which allows me to see the condition of people's blood, how their organs are working, etc. So I can really show them on a screen, this is your body inside. So it's not me guessing, it's not me kind of saying, oh, well, maybe this is wrong with you or whatever. It's a concrete kind of evidence right in front of them to say, right, this is what's going on, and this is what you need to do. So I try and make things very simple for people as well, and I think that's kind of the key to any business, is to success, is to keep it simple, keep it manageable, so that people don't feel overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And to the point of this question, I know that you'll have a lot of opportunities later on from a lot of other panelists, and not panelists, I'm sorry, speakers today that will be talking to you about the audience and making sure you understand their pain points. This is a critical issue, but I also want you to not be overwhelmed by the idea that somebody else is doing it, so why bother, right? We've all been down that path, and so you can see that they've got very specific ways. You hear the word health and wellness, you probably know somebody in it, but it's very different than the way Denise does. And you hear the same waste management or trash and garbage or collection or removal, and that is very different. And that's true of all of our businesses. So you will get that guidance, but the reason they're telling you is because it's so critical in getting you closer to the people you want to work with, and that can help you. So we're going to go to money, because everybody wants to talk about money. So last question, we've only got a few minutes, but and then we're going to open it up for Q&A, so start thinking about if you have questions for these wonderful people. I want to know, what's the piece of your business you invested in that you feel like was really the one that's totally worth it, you would do again and again? You know, where did you invest in that you feel like really made a huge difference for your company? Because I know everybody's thinking about where they're supposed to spend their money. And whether it was in the beginning or as you developed, please share that. Sandy?
Two things. As you're starting your company, the intellectual property is really not a place where you want to cut corners. Your trademark, if you need a patent, the copyrights, that's a really important place to spend money day one, because it's more expensive to have to fix a problem in that sector than it is to take care of it to begin with. So I would suggest researching your trademarks, copyrights, patents from day one. The second place where we invested in that I felt paid off so nicely was the people that we worked with. Not only our manufacturing partners, but the people that worked in our office every day. They became family. The first person that worked with me sewing our gloves 25 years ago is still with me today. So building those relationships, treating people like they are family, at least that was kind of our culture. And when you give someone, when you make people feel valued, they want to bring more to the table. So.
Absolutely, I
Those
love
are my
that.
two
Thank
things.
you. Thank you. Raea?
I would say consider hiring a business coach and then finding an incubator. So are you all familiar with incubators? So I was fortunate enough through my networking to find that there was a new incubator starting in Tysons that was focusing specifically just on green businesses and environmental green solutions. And so I was able to step in at the right time. He actually had a whole floor of an office building in Tysons that was already rented out, and he was leasing them for small business owners like me so I had a Tysons address for like $300 a month. It was amazing to have that. And then you're just in the room, you're in the environment in an open bullpen with other business owners that are all trying to figure and solve the same thing. That was probably having a business coach and being in an environment with other entrepreneurs who are also at the same starting point was extremely helpful for my confidence and helped me get my sure-footedness that I wasn't the only crazy person by myself trying to figure this out.
Love it.
So,
love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Denise?
Well, I invested in my machine, which obviously was crucial to me, but depending on whatever your business is, I think I don't know if this is fair to say actually, but most people who are quite entrepreneurial are quite daring, or I don't know, there's some sort of, there's some kind of rebellion in you, so you just kind of go, okay, somehow you just manage it. When I bought my machine, it was like $10,000 and I didn't have the money, but I bought it anyway, and then it was worth every penny. And I think that's just kind of how, can I say we operate, because you just don't have that sort of fear, otherwise I don't think you'd be doing it, or you wouldn't be entering into it.
When you say machine, are you talking about a piece of equipment that you invested in?
Yes.
That's specific to your industry?
Yes.
So you invested in the best possible?
Yeah, I researched for over a year.
Excellent.
Before I plowed my money into it, but I just knew I needed it in order to kind of make me stand out.
Yeah, Yeah, excellent. I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify I appreciate that. So we've talked a little bit about how we spend our money. We've talked a little bit about how we're protecting ourselves, that's the fun of building a business model, and a few other things. But right now, we're able to take questions from you. I, of course, have more questions for the panelists if you don't have them, but I'd rather share this time with you. I believe there's a mic runner somewhere. We do have one. We have questions. Hello, anybody? Okay, just yell it out. We'll try to repeat it, please. Oh, please stand up and tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Celie Colley, and I know Raea from NAPO.
Fantastic.
I'd love to know what's next. What's your next plan for all of you? Because I'm excited about all of your businesses and industries.
So the question is, what is your next plan for your empire, your world domination?
Unbeknownst to me, it wasn't on my plan, but what started happening 2 years ago, and now I'm full on, is we are actually providing landfill diversion latex paint waste solutions for cities and counties. We started in Maryland and Virginia. Last year got a phone call from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the state of Ohio, who said, can you please do for us here in our states what you're doing in Virginia?
Nice.
We are out. My resources to start gearing up for, okay, how do we get that paint from Springfield, Mass. and outside of Boston back to Virginia? That's the challenge I'm working on now. So
Excellent. Denise?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say, am I, Joe? Am I allowed to say? Yeah. What's next? Okay.
That sounds exciting. Tell us. First to know, exclusive here.
What I'm going to do, what we're going to attempt to do, is to franchise my business in a much sort of lower key way, but to teach individuals how the sort of basics of how to advise on well-being and health, and then to get those individuals to go out in their own communities, in their areas, and kind of do what I do in a slightly sort of different scale. So that's the next plan. But starting in New York City.
Fantastic.
Hopefully this January.
And Sandy's a longtime entrepreneur and author. What's coming up for you, Sandy?
I'm happy to say I have a second book coming out May 1st, publishing May 1st, called Breathe to Succeed. Mm-hmm. And from speaking at conferences like this, I kind of saw an SOS in the business sector. People are addicted to technology and our devices, and we're full of anxiety and stress, and life is different. We can't work at the speed of technology. And so I decided to share my, next year will be 30 years of practice and training in yoga and breath and mindset. So I'll be traveling the world talking about the power of breath and mindset in business.
That's exciting. Next question. I see one very far back. I'm going to ask you to stand. Sorry, I'm going to make you work today. I want the whole crowd. Please use them. Tell us your name.
Hi, good morning. My name is Nicola Gilbert. I just had a quick question about the incubator. What did you mean by that?
Oh yeah.
Great.
Please.
Oh, great, good. Okay, an incubator is borrowed off of literally what it means in the medical world for babies. It is a very warm, safe, shame-free, welcoming opportunity for you as an entrepreneur to step into. It is designed by the business community specifically to help all of us transition from I have an idea to how do I get from the 0 to 2? How do I stand up and learn to walk and get off my fours and then get my sure-footedness? And so then it is in a physical environment. Generally, it is office space that you can either come to. It is a culture where they have classes, speakers. Mm-hmm. They might bring someone in, exactly what Sandy was saying. Hey, we're going to bring in a trademark attorney to bring in, and we're going to talk about your business ideas and whether your idea or product or solution is patentable. And then sometimes they'll even have a whole workshop just on let's get you patented, let's get you trademarked. So I know that there's one in Bethesda that's starting. The Be Green people, they're here. I know you're here. There's one in Bethesda that's starting, and
there's Giselle. Are you in the room? If you'll stand up. Giselle has an incubator also in Fairfax, Virginia. She's one of our speakers today. So make sure you look for her on the list if you have more questions.
Look for your industry.
Yeah,
the incubators are going to be specific to your industry. There's lots in tech.
There's a food kitchen one, I think, in the Loudon area. intensive to your area of interest. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to move around a little bit, but it gets you the people that know your industry faster.
And then the investors are also plugged into the incubators too.
Yep.
So get involved with your incubator so that the investors can find you.
They're also called accelerators in some
Yeah,
places.
yes,
point.
so, yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah, that's true. All right, let's go in the middle there, please. Yeah, please.
Thanks. Have you had an experience?
I'm sorry, wait, what's your name?
Oh, hi, Julia Dada.
Hello, your dada. I'm so sorry.
It's Russian,
My
it's
name is
complex. So,
Talmar.
hi ladies, thanks so much. Have any of you had experience raising money from venture capitalists, angel investors, Kickstarter, any suggestion? At the seed level, prototype, again, it's nice to say let's quit the job and go to sit at the incubator, but who's gonna pay the bills,
Well, that's
children, and everything
yeah,
else?
that's why we
So,
talk about bootstrapping,
anything
but
for that? Any suggestion, lessons learned?
I feel like Raea can share on that.
So I got some advice from the #1 business owner in the entire Mid-Atlantic region who I do a lot of business networking with. And what he said was, am I allowed to say this?
Yes, yes, you can say it.
Because this
an
is
opinion.
this is what a lot of small business owners are told. There's a metric number. Do not ever, 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 ever give up any equity in your company until you need $1 million. Until then, you go to your friends, you go to your neighbors. I actually had a neighbor of mine who came to me, his wife came to me and said, we've been watching you grow this business from what the heck is she doing to, oh my gosh, you're in all the major hotels now, da-da-da. So they came to me and said, can we sit down and have a conversation with you? We want to invest in you. And I said, great, find out what your magic number is. Is it 20,000? Is it 10,000? Is it 50,000? What do you got? So we're actually having that active conversation right now. My understanding is any VC I've ever talked to, and I know there's investors in the room, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. My understanding is that VCs don't want to talk to a business like mine until I need like that $1 to $5 or $5 to $10 million. In a VC's mind, I'm still proving the concept, even though I'm making revenue.
So VC is venture capitalism, and so I think that one thing that business owners get, it's not a sale. So investors want to understand not just how you're going to make money, but how they're going to get their money and when. So if you're going to approach people about investing, which I encourage, and again, depends on your industry and where you're at, how easy that is, but there's definitely people here to be connected with. Be mindful that they're going to want to understand not just how you plan to make enough money to pay them back, but how long is that going to be? Are you planning to pay them, are you planning to sell the business outright in 5 years? That might be a reasonable risk and time frame for them. They might have other ideas. So the investment discussion is as much about them believing in what you're selling as you being able to prove that it's saleable. That's a word, right? And that it's saleable and that it is something that that's trending up and that you have a plan to get them their money on the back end somewhere. If you're planning to hand this business down to your family, you're probably looking for a loan. That's a different situation. An investor wants to know that they're investing to get some kind of dividends. It can be dividend payout. There's lots of different structures, but be mindful that that's the conversation that you're having with these kinds of people.
Can I
Yes,
add one
please.
thing? Also, the time to get a loan, we were always still a privately held company. We never had investors, but what I learned was that the best time to get a loan is when the times are good.
Yeah, before you
So, we would get purchase orders and we would have to manufacture for these, and we didn't have the money at the time, but we owned a home. So we were able to show these purchase orders and get a loan at that time.
Absolutely.
So.
Perfect, thanks for sharing. Okay, questions? Yes, ma'am. I'll get you next.
Patty Lundy, answers will be short. What's the name of your product? What do you do with the paint? And what's the name of your machine?
My product is called Moisture Jams.
We qualify the paint for reuse and recycle opportunities.
And my machine is called an Asyra.
There you go.
Asyra.
Excellent. Yes, ma'am. Do you have mine? There you go. Your name too, please.
Hi there. Oh, I'm Sienna Zimmerman. I'm actually the daughter of the first speaker.
Yes, she is.
As women in business, often we talk about glass ceilings and the difficulty that you have of being a woman in a man's world. Mm-hmm. When you work for yourself, what is the difference? And is it easier or harder to be by yourself as a woman?
Interesting. Excellent question.
Interesting.
Denise, you want to start?
I think it has advantages, actually. I know that it's a difficult subject, actually, because in my industry, I think I view everybody as the same. I know when I started, I was a bit scared of CEOs and managing directors, and I thought, oh, they're so important, but actually, take their clothes off, they're the same as everyone else. Not all their clothes.
No, she's like, not all of them. I love that.
But I've certainly in my industry, I have found it good to be a woman.
Yeah, all right.
Being a woman in an industry where there are very, very, very few women, I have learned and discovered that being a woman has had a tremendous advantage. So when I started rolling up to the loading docks of these big commercial office buildings and hotels and military bases, and again, I was had all my certificates with me, my EPA certification, my DOT certification, to kind of prove my value that I'm doing the right thing with your paint, don't worry. This is what I kept hearing over and over and over again from the guys at the loading docks. Oh, it's a woman? Oh, we trust you. You're not going to dump it somewhere you're not supposed to. That was it. There was this inherent understanding from men regarding me as a woman, like, oh, we trust her. We trust her. Right. She's going to do the right thing. I guess women are just, we're accustomed to cleaning up the messes that men make.
Yeah.
So that was it.
I love it. I love that. What about you, Sandy?
I never really felt impacted as being a woman. I looked at it as a positive and as an advantage because, as we've talked about, like, we're good at multitasking, we're good at building relationships, we're trustworthy, and so I've built long-term relationships, and I've also worn every single hat in the business. I've had to learn every single thing, so I never wanted to feel, I guess, encumbered or less than, and I've just always done what needs to be done no matter what, and continue just to keep going. And supporting other women.
Yeah, I know. That in and of itself, sometimes the glass ceiling is held down by other women. But to your point, if I may, I'm working with business owners in business, right? So my industry was more male, less so nowadays. And I definitely got some pushback once in a while. And it literally always surprised me because I believe belong in every room. So I'm like, what do you mean? And so I would make it my mission because again, the challenge and problem solving, to win that person over and convince them that it had nothing to do with whether I was wearing a skirt or red lipstick, that I was the right person for the job. I have way less of that conversation just even 8 years later than when I first started in business. Absolutely. But it's still there. If you you definitely have to be mindful about who your industry and who you're selling to. It's going to come up more in sales for any business than in a lot of others, because who you're selling to and their preconceptions of the person that should be selling. Because if you're a business owner, let's talk about this, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you are in sales. You need to get comfortable with sales. You need to get comfortable with business development. It's absolutely a part of your job, even if you end up hiring somebody else, because we need to be sold on your idea. But so sales in and of itself, asking for revenue sales, can be, I think, the one area that I still see it once in a while where somebody's like, oh, but you're a chick. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm the best person for the job. And now I don't want you for a client, so I'm going to go over there. Right? And that's the autonomy part, right? We get to surround ourselves. So that's why I think we have less experiences like that. We get to choose who we want to work with. And if the person doesn't receive our information well, or we don't get that great conversation, we just are like, well, I got clients over here that I'm going to work with. And that's where I think we get to, it's not insulate so much as we get to be choosier about who gets our awesomeness. Yeah. Is that helpful? Thank you. Okay, question over here. I'm sorry, I'll get you next. I'll look back there too, I promise. Oh.
Hi, I'm Kim Farrington. I'm the founder and CEO of K-Tech, which is developing, actually I invented a K-Tech USB storage case to keep your data protected.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Inventor. Awesome.
My question is, have you considered utilizing advisory boards, paying people $1,000 a year to come to 4 meetings? And do you use them, or
does anybody
any
use
thoughts
them?
on that?
I have, that was actually one of the first bits of advice I got in a similar entrepreneurs conference about 5 years ago was that it's really, really important out the gate you set up your advisory board. And I bought a book about it, and I would have I don't have an official formal advisory board. I have found it very important to leverage when I found someone that I really wanted their brain to assist me with my business on some aspect, that I would offer them, I would leverage, like, hey, why don't you be a member of my advisory board? I'd love to have you help me, like,
Well, that's the whole
shepherd the
point.
path.
Yeah.
But no, and I haven't gotten down so far that road after 4 years of business to have an official established advisory board where I'm paying them out money. But I do use it as a leverage tool to.
Excellent. I call mine the big brains. That's why I
Okay.
laughed at her, my advisory board. Okay, last question. I'm sorry, but we'll be here today and everybody can follow. I promise this young lady, please. Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Ola, and I'm the founder of Be Fit for Akhira. And I want to ask, how can you make your story be heard and be allowed to speak it, and just, like, people buy the idea of your story? So thank you.
Marketing. I'm like, marketing, thank you very much. Goodbye. It's, Sandy, go for it.
We are in the time of social media, and it's like one of the best benefits now to entrepreneurial life is that we're all storytellers. And the great thing is people want to know the story behind a business now. And so you can tell it authentically now on your own. We all have our own platforms now, and I think it's really important to use them so that you can get to know people and share your story through social media. It's an incredible free marketing tool.
And it's, again, it's about attracting the audience. They'll have lots of speakers about that, saying the right words that audience wants to hear, so they want to know more about your gift, right? Does anybody else have, we're supposed to wind up, so.
And
if
just
you have a
never,
burning
ever
one-
giving up. You know,
Yes.
you're going to get no's, you're going to get people that don't like what you do. If you truly believe in it as your passion and it's your love, then you'll make it work.
Absolutely. I want to thank Denise Kelly, Raea Leinster, Sandy Abrams. I'm Talmar Anderson. Go build your businesses. Thank you.
Transition it here first. Okay, Diane, sorry, I'm just gonna here for a second. But then I would have. We're gonna bring it here first, and then we're gonna change this. We're just gonna have this up, and then we're gonna skip that. And we're just gonna you just want this? Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do here, and then we're gonna do laptop. Which mic?
Okay, so we're ready for our next segment, but that was amazing. That was so much fun. I was watching it backstage there, and it was just really informative and a lot of fun. So I hope you all had a good time with the panel. Our next speaker is the director of the Mason Enterprise Center Business Incubator, where she helps small businesses launch, succeed, and grow. She has provided counseling, advice, and mentoring services to more than 400 clients, and we're happy that she can share some of that with us today. She's going to speak to us about being smart, knowing your customer before building your product. We'll hear about the importance of testing out your product before putting it out there, and ways to save thousands of dollars to see if there's any interest in your product idea with today's market. So we'd like to welcome Giselle Stoltz to the stage.